The federal government has condemned the recent travel advisory issued by the United States of America to its citizens in Nigeria. It says such advisory could cause needless panic and have adverse economic consequences. While assuring Nigerians that the country's security agencies are adequately prepared to protect citizens, the Minister of Information and National Orientation cautioned against generalizing isolated incidents in the country. Arise correspondent Punaraman Benjamin reports.
The UK and the US Department of State had, in an advisory issued over the weekend, warned its citizens to keep off major hotels in Nigeria over alleged plots by terrorists to attack the facilities and other areas frequented by foreigners. Reacting to the advisory, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, cautioned the US and other foreign countries against generalizing isolated security incidents in the country. He says the government was already working hard to tackle insecurity and that such advisory will undermine the efforts by the Nigerian government to attract investors.
In their recent travel advisory, we believe that it is imperative that we do not generalize isolated incidents across the entire hospitality industry. What we have seen is that such terrorists do not achieve anything other than needless panic, and they can have severe adverse economic impact for our nation, not to talk of what they do to undermine the government's efforts to attract investment. We therefore call on the international community, not just the US government, to be very sensitive to this issue of travel advisory.
On the harsh effect of the removal of petrol subsidy, the minister assures Nigerians that the government is doing everything within its power to ease the impact. The minister also highlighted some measures put in place to improve the economy.
The President made mention that there's going to be a 25% wage allowance for all federal workers. But as a result of the engagement that government has had with the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, the government decided to make an increase of 10,000, and the president graciously took that and unveiled that to Nigerians. You will also have noticed that deft moves by the central banks to clear the billions of dollars in inherited foreign exchange backlog is ongoing. We saw the immediate impact of this on the exchange rates only last week, and we are confident that this is just the beginning. Under the Renewed Hope agenda, the central bank is determined to focus on its core mandate of price stability and financial system stability for the benefit of all Nigerians.
With the promises made by the Nigerian government, Nigerians will be hoping to see an improvement in their lives soon, especially in the areas of security and economy. Punaraman Benjamin, Arise News.
So joining us now is Dr. Kester Onu, a senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIA, and a visiting scholar at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, a security expert and former ECOMAG military personnel. Great to have you, Dr. Kester Onu.
Thank you for having me.
So, federal government reacting to security advisories. The question is, are those advisories not true in the first place?
Well, if we look at the advisory, they just said that there is an elevated threat, in major hotels in Nigeria, especially in the major cities. Well, saying whether it's true or false may not be the issue at this particular time, considering the fact that it's the prerogative of every country to protect the interest of their citizens. However, in protecting that interest, I think the country must equally bear in mind that they shouldn't undermine the security of the other country too. You understand? I believe that we cannot fault maybe Americans or the UK government for what they are doing. But if you look at the state of insecurity in Nigeria today, you can see that even this present administration has gone a long way to curtail insecurity to some reasonable extent.
Well, you are commending the Nigerian government. I was going to ask you to respond to what the Minister of Information said, that this administration is doing a lot to provide a secure and safe environment for both Nigerians and foreigners. Are you saying that you believe him? Because he was talking about, ramping up intelligence gathering, cooperation with international agencies, and that Nigerian hotels are safe. Do you believe the Minister of Information when he accused the Americans of generalizing from isolated incidents?
Well, I think I believe him to some reasonable extent, considering the fact that if you look at the security situation in Nigeria presently, I think we've made a remarkable progress from what, was obtainable from the past. Even the issues in the northeast, in the north central, southeast and the other area, apart from maybe the election situation we are seeing in the that is Imo State now, I think the government has made a remarkable improvement. I'm not saying that it's year to huru, but I believe that at least they are doing something. And from even the warning that the U.S. issued to their citizens from the emergency information system, we can equally understand that they made mention of major hotels in Nigeria based on the intelligent report they have gathered. But at the same time, they equally, ascertain that the security agencies in Nigeria are working diligently to counter the threat. So I think the government is doing something.
No, but can you focus a bit more on the implications? Will it not even undermine business in Nigeria? It's not just about their own citizens. Will it not undermine business in Nigeria? Considering the fact that, look, if you're a Nigerian, you hear that major hotels are no longer safe, according to the Americans. And Nigerians have this belief, okay, whether it's myth or reality or not, that the Americans will know what is going on anywhere in the world. Okay, will you want to go to any major hotel? What do we do about that?
Well,
And how does that play in international relations?
Obviously, there are implications. Obviously, there are certain implications. At least when we talk about maybe investment coming in with such news, it will hinder investors from coming in. However, like I said earlier, I believe it's the responsibility of every responsible government to protect their citizens, And in doing that, they must equally take into cognizance, the impact it will have on the other country. So I think that is what the Minister of Information is trying to, to establish here. That look, maybe a single incident cannot be used to generalize issues. Otherwise, one may be committing a fallacy of overgeneralization or illegitimate reductionism.
Okay, let's talk about synergy. This happened a couple of months ago, and you remember the Trade Mall incident. The fact that the Americans had started packing up stuff, and there was this big brouhaha, evacuation and all of that. And the talk there was the American authorities did not synergize with their own local authorities. But also, the operation carried out at Trade Mall was a joint operation. Can we do more as regards information
sharing
with these bodies, Nigerian? Because we do a lot of joint partnerships. I mean, yesterday I was on a Spanish warship in the night, and the ship, the BAM Tornado, had been docked at the Lagos port, but I can see a lot of Nigerian naval officers also on the ship with joint actions and things like that. So can we do more of that in terms of information?
I believe that such is going on. When we talk about these security incidents, it's not exclusive to Nigeria issue. If you look at, all over the world, this contemporary era, you discover that we have a lot of security challenges. We look at the Israeli-Hamas war and its effect globally. Even in America itself, America is not safe. You can see a lot of people, rioting, demonstrating, and even in major countries of the Europe, looking at the effect of such actions. So that maybe for them to say that maybe there is a security challenge in Nigeria and major hotels should be avoided is not an exceptional case. You understand? Even in America itself, nowhere is safe all over the globe.
Well, let me ask you. Now we're talking about U.S. issuing travel advisory. Does Nigeria sometimes also issue travel advisories to our citizens abroad about situations in other countries? To say, oh, Nigerians, keep safe, keep safe. I don't know, maybe you know. whether that has happened before. Why is it that Nigeria is always reacting when the US issues an advisory, when the UK issues advisory? Nigeria is not the only country, I guess, that has issues. We have not even issued a travel advisory about what is going on in the Middle East. Even our president has gone towards the Middle East. If there's an escalation, many Nigerians will be caught in the middle of it. So you think it's an omission on the part of the Nigerian government, or we just don't know if they do it?
Dr. Ruben, I think it will be an erroneous assumption for us to believe that Nigeria doesn't issue travel advisory. I know that during the xenophobic attack in South Africa, yes, Nigerian government made, they issued advisory to Nigerians living in South Africa, and maybe in some other places that there were crises there.
How about the U.S.? There is violence in the U.S. too.
Yes, but when we
why haven't we issued an advisory to more people in the U.S.?
When we talk about U.S., we are not talking about U.S. holistically. Maybe there may be violence in some of the cities. Just to pick the entire United States now, giving travel advisory, I think it will not augur well. You understand? Just like the Minister of Information has emphasized, that you don't use a single case, to generalize. So Nigeria do issue travel advisories, and I believe that even the president going to Saudi Arabia, the issue at what is happening at Gaza, and maybe West Bank, and there is Israeli-Hamas crisis, I think is the issue that demands the gathering of global leaders for them to put heads together and see how maybe ceasefire can be achieved. So I think it's part of the reason that you have.
Let's go back to that. You said a lot of things, and
yes,
correct me if I'm wrong, you're making a lot of sweeping generalizations. Insecurity cases have not really reduced in the country. In fact, it's increased. I don't know if you saw the front page of the Sun newspaper this morning of farmers beheaded. That reminded me of Zabamari. People are still being killed. They can't still go to many areas of this country. Kidnapping is still rampant. In fact, there was a story in, I think it was Daily Trust this morning, talking about the kidnapping of a doctor in Enugu, that it was only safe because the kidnappers were high and whatever.
With Indian hemp, and he escaped.
And he escaped and all of that.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, there's a big tapestry of insecurity in Nigeria, which is also largely underreported. So even all of this outlook we claim and say, oh, things are getting better, is because of the large level of underreporting going on.
Well, Mr. Rufai, without contradiction, I said earlier that it has reduced. I didn't say that we have maybe the issues of insecurity has been eradicated.
What are your empirical facts for that?
And well, if you look at the past administration,
yeah,
there were a lot of crises of insecurity here and there.
And what parameters do you judge insecurity reduction?
Well, there are reports. There are various security reports.
Yes.
But if you look at this administration, based on what has taken place and the things that are taking place, even within the forces, you understand? So my contacts, from the Nigerian forces and other areas, shows that at least they're working assiduously to reduce the...
But working assiduously doesn't mean a reduction.
No, at least if you look at what was happening in the past administration, and you compare it now, because I can tell you that even in the past administration, you cannot travel from Lagos, to Onitsha. I know many people, if you are traveling about 4 or 5 times, you have to stop on the way. Maybe that herdsmen are attacking. But now at least we have free flow of movement and all these things.
But people can challenge you that they traveled in the past administration from Lagos.
No, listen, I'm not saying that it has been eradicated totally.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that it has reduced. And I believe that the way the security operatives are working, maybe very soon, the issue of insecurity will be, it will be a foregone issue.
Well, I guess, you will stick to your position. But let me draw your attention to something else. General Buratai, who was one of the chiefs of staff, defense staff in the last administration, gave a public lecture recently. I was saying, look, it is not right to blame defense chiefs for insecurity in the country, but that it is the politicians that should be blamed. Well, I haven't seen the details of what he meant by that and which politician he was specifically referring to, but he made that general statement that politicians are the ones behind insecurity, terrorism, banditry, kidnapping in the country. So how do we solve the problem of insecurity and violence and banditry if the politicians are the ones behind it? And why would a defense chief, retired, now coming to give excuses? If he knew those politicians, his job was to secure the country. Why did he not go after them?
Well, I think General Buratai has given his own view. You understand? And we all know that politicians, they equally have hands, you know, in the aggravated security situation we have in this country. You understand? But that's not to say that the situation when he was the defense chief, you know, is better than what we are having now. I believe that the service chiefs we are having now, they are working seriously to ensure that they nip this crisis of insecurity in the bud. So I think that at least a remarkable achievement has been made. I'm not saying that it has been eradicated totally, but I believe that remarkable achievement has been made.
Okay, are you saying, by implication, that General Buhari, President Buhari, who became president, you know, given his military background, security background, and Nigerians said, oh, maybe if we vote for this, former soldier, you'll be able to address the challenge of insecurity. Are you saying that President Buhari failed with regard to the challenge of insecurity in the country?
Well, I don't want
now that even his chief of army staff is coming out to say, well, blame the politicians, don't blame the military. So you are saying that in the future, Nigerians should not bother about voting for any soldier, any former soldier, because these soldiers, they can't even handle security. Because President Tinubu is a civilian, and you are saying a civilian is doing better.
That's not what I said.
Isn't that the implication of what you are saying?
That's not what I said, because if you look at the insecurity challenges we have in this country does not just start from a day. You know, if you look at Nigeria as a country, there are a lot of ingrained animosities, you know, and you look at massive unemployment. It's not just a government that created that situation. This is a situation that has accumulated over time. And for the fact that we get to a stage where you created an army of unemployed that has come out to vent their anger into the system that have impoverished them, you know, you cannot just blame a single government. But what I said here is that I think under this present dispensation, I see the service chiefs and the military agencies and other parliamentary agencies working assiduously to reduce drastically the level of insecurity we have in this country.
But working doesn't mean we've seen the results. Take, for instance, The Guardian this morning says, with insecurity, low turnout may be experienced. These are the off-cycle elections coming. You know, in Imo State, for instance, they said no elections in 38 polling units out of Imo's 4,758 over zero registration. Insecurity basis. Terrorist attack will loot procession in Katsina, killed 30, injured, kidnapped others. So when you say working assiduously, a lot of people will ask, hey, where is the result?
If we look at Imo is an exceptional case. You know, since the government, we know some of the issues.
Yeah.
You know, with the Supreme Court judgment that brought about Uzodinma's government. We saw how
prior to that time, Imo was safe.
Imo was
largely safe. In fact, it was started. So that's why I said no. You can't say it's an outlier.
Of course,
yeah, but it was largely safe before.
We saw the operation of unknown gunmen, Eclipse, you know, and other, you know, nefarious activities taking place. And Imo has been boiling since then. So we cannot just pick Imo. If you look at Kaduna, for example, you look at even the Northeast, you can see that there are certain level of sanity there now.
The Northeast?
Yes.
Katsina?
Yes,
killing the Borno, 13 farmers beheaded.
Of course.
So what, I mean, that's what I'm asking you.
These things are not just happening.
You are intellectual.
These things they have been happening before. You understand what I'm saying?
What parameters and threshold are you using to calculate this thing?
No, definitely there are parameters.
So what is it?
There are parameters. You understand? If you check the level, I mean that there are reductions in these things under this present dispensation.
You've not been able to give me empirical proof of the reduction. I want to see data. I want to see stats. I want to see.
Well, you don't expect me to come to come here with data. Like I said, we know all these things. For example, you know Jos crisis. You know the claims that take place in Kaduna. You know the claims that take place in Jos during the past administration. Some of all those things, you can see that those things have drastically reduced. You see some
because
of
there's
the,
no crisis, so it's just waiting for the next
there
crisis
has
to
never
happen.
been, when these things were taking place, there's never been crisis.
Yeah.
You just hear that a herdsman will invade a village and they kill a lot of people. Both in Kaduna, in Jos, and all these places, there has never been crisis.
Well,
You understand?
Dr. Ono,
Okay, sir.
are you a member of the APC?
I am not, of course.
You are sure?
I'm a non-partisan, when I'm talking
Now,
about.
you work in the international relations arena.
Yes, sir.
What do you think that the Nigerian government should do to preempt perhaps this kind of situation whereby you have the US, the UK perpetually issuing travel advisories, warnings, and putting Nigeria in a situation where it has to respond? Okay, the US has issued its own warning. The UK has followed suit. At a time, we had about 5-6 countries warning their citizens. So do you think there is an omission on the part of the foreign ministry of Nigeria? Because if there is very good relationship with some of these embassies, maybe they will give the Nigerian government heads up and will not lead to a situation whereby we will just wake up one morning and we'll say, oh, the Canadian government says don't do this in Nigeria, and Nigeria will now be explaining and all of that. It doesn't happen like this in other countries, does it?
Well, I believe
Not even in Israel, where there is a
serious crisis.
an issue.
Okay. I believe that there should be serious inter-agency cooperation. There should be synergy, between the both Ministry of Foreign Affairs and different embassies, in Nigeria. Beside that, even because I know that even as I'm talking now, both our military operatives are working in tandem with, maybe United States government and other government in terms of training programs. I believe there should be serious synergy among them so that to facilitate information sharing. Because if we have such synergy that facilitate information sharing, in situations like this, they can just put their head together and know how to counter the threats instead of creating such an environment that we create panic for the masses.
So you were talking about facts. Let me give you some facts. Although be evidence from somebody, you can say it's a danger of a single story or narrative. Somebody sent me a message. I'll just leave his name as Rotimi. Rotimi used to be one of the biggest rice farmers in this country. So he knows more about all of these things you're talking about because he's on the field and he sees it himself. He talks about the fact that most of these things you're saying is reducing are underreported, that you don't have access to the interland communities. He also talked about seasons. He says that once you have, a dry season and these people are able to move around, then there's a heightened spike again. He said in rainy seasons, it holds them back and things like that. What would you say about all of this? Because these are the facts I'm telling you. And that's why I said, what are the empirical evidence where you say it's a reduction?
Okay, let me give you one.
Yeah.
For example, last time there was a meeting, between security agencies, traditional rulers and I think some bandits, in Katsina State. And some people even came out to criticize the meeting, that why would they be having meeting? You understand? I believe that with such meeting, as long as it will bring peace, because if we are talking about meeting, there are many ways to peace. If we are talking about resolving conflict, the alternative dispute resolution strategy, you understand? It's not just gun, war, and bullets. In a situations when you realize that these things cannot solve the problem, lives are at stake here. We have families that have been displaced. We can use alternative dispute resolution strategy. Maybe call them, we have a meeting, you understand? See how we can solve this issue. But at least even after the meeting, I was reading on the paper, some people were criticizing. Why will the state government sit down with bandits? Why will the armed forces be having meeting with bandits? Look, what we are discussing here is about human life. Every approach that can bring peace and succor to the community that are suffering from these challenges, I think such approach should be.
So, but real quickly, a lot of people would discountenance that your talk about meeting because we had the former governor of Katsina State take photo up with bandits, and guess what? Banditry increased big time, or let me use the word, big league, like Donald Trump will say. Banditry increased afterwards. So we're looking at outcomes here. And that's what I'm just asking for facts. But we need to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Kessler, for your time. Really appreciate you. Dr. Bati.
Thank you.